My wife's been struggling with grief ever since her mom passed 5 years ago. I've been trying to support her as best I can, but I honestly feel like I've lost her. So, I wrote her a letter explaining everything, and a day later, she disappears. Turns out, she was at this guy, someone from work, seeking comfort. They've been texting for over a year, and he's been trashing me while comforting her. My wife's mother passed away 5 years ago from lung cancer. It was not a peaceful or easy death. Our lives understandably went on pause after the diagnosis, and we both spent a lot of time off work helping care for her mother. My wife had a pretty typical showing of grief at the time, cycling through different stages, just like our 3 children did. After she passed away, however, my wife's condition worsened. I understand how devastating it was for her. I cannot say I know exactly what she went through because I have not lost a parent, but I do empathize. For months after her mother's death, she could barely function. I gently took over all the responsibilities at home and with the children. She had been attending grief counseling since the diagnosis and continued after her mother's passing. This is not the problem. I endeavored to be as supportive as possible. She cried on my shoulder every night for months, and I just thought this was the worst part of, for better or worse. The issue is that 5 years later, she does not seem any better or more functional. She stopped attending grief counseling about 4 years ago and refuses to go again, stating that it would not help and that nothing could. About a month before any major holiday, she experiences a major emotional downturn. She spends half the day in bed, crying throughout the day, avoiding interaction with the family, and unable to do anything around the house. This continues every single day until about a week after the holiday ends. Each holiday is marked by intense grief, as intense now as it was 5 years ago. October, November, December, and January, her mother's birthday month, are particularly difficult. I am essentially without my wife during this time, becoming a single parent to our 3 children. Altogether, she is incapacitated by grief for about 6 months each year, and this has been the case for the past 5 years. When I say incapacitated, I mean she is completely incapable of intimacy with me or the children. There is no cuddling, no spending time together, no family outings. I go without any form of sexual intimacy for half the year. I have stopped asking if she wants to talk about her feelings because she cannot get any words out between her sobs when she tries. What hurts the most is that the children no longer ask or seem concerned. If they see their mother in bed when they get home, they go about their day and might casually mention, "Oh, mom is sad today." If they're siblings or I ask where she is, they do not seek affection from her anymore because they rarely get anything other than tears. I have discussed this with therapists, my parents, and friends, and I know all the rebuttals, so let me preempt them. She is unwilling to return to therapy for grief counseling or see a doctor for her depression. Yes, I know she is severely depressed. I cannot force her to go to the doctor. I have tried everything I can. Yes, it is just as intense as it was 5 years ago. No, I have never told her to get over it or dismissed her feelings. On my worst days, I just give her space and leave her be, but most days I try to offer her comfort. If you want to judge me for leaving her alone, fine, but know that I am dealing with caretaker fatigue at this point. No, she does not have a history of depression, but she does have ADHD. I do not know if that is relevant. I feel like my wife died when her mother died. I would do anything to get her back, even a small piece of her, but she does not seem willing or able to move on from her mother's death. I feel awful for considering divorce, but I do not know what else to do. After my last post, I spent a few days writing a letter to my wife. In the letter, I explained that the children and I love her dearly and are concerned for her. I outlined all the worrying behaviors and told her that I believe she needs to seek additional medical care. I explained that it sounded like she had complex grief. Thank you to those who pointed that out. And that the grief therapy she attended years ago was insufficient to help her move forward. I did not mention divorce but expressed that the children cannot continue to live in the current situation. It was a long letter, and I do not feel like transcribing it here. I read the letter to her the same night I finished writing it, after the children had gone to bed. After I finished reading, she stared right through me with a 1,000-yard stare for about 15 minutes before standing up and walking to the door. I panicked and tried to stop her, asking where she was going and if we could talk about it because I was concerned for her safety. She rolled her eyes at me and, in the coldest voice I have ever heard her use, said, "I hope when your parents die, someone does not tell you to get over it." After that, I did not try to stop her and let her go. I was angry for about 5 minutes before panic set in. I truly thought she was going to harm herself. I checked my phone, and she had turned off her location. I called and texted her probably 50 times over the next hour, begging her to at least let me know she was okay and that she was not going to do something drastic. Just before I was about to call the police, I received a call from her phone. I answered immediately, but before I could say much, a man's voice said, "She's fine, but she does not want to talk to you," and hung up. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. I had no idea what was going on. I almost called the police anyway, but I was disassociating hard and talked myself out of it. I kept calling her phone all night, but no one picked up again. After about 2 in the morning, the calls started going straight to voicemail. I barely slept that night. When I woke up the next day, she still was not home. I took the children to school and daycare. I normally do this, and my wife is usually still asleep while I do. So thankfully they did not ask where mom was. I called her phone repeatedly all morning, but it continued going to voicemail. I called her office and asked if she was at work, and they told me she had called in sick. I called in sick to work as well and sat on the couch, trying to reach her, feeling like a nervous wreck. I called my mother and asked if she could pick up the children from school and watch them overnight. I did not tell her everything that was happening, just that it was urgent and I needed help. My wife walked in the door sometime after 4 in the afternoon. I tried to hug her, but she shied away from me. I asked her where she had been, and she gave no response, just a blank stare. I asked her who had called me from her phone, and again, no response. At this point, I was frustrated and told her that if she did not want to explain what was going on, she could leave. I regret saying it that way now, but I was extremely frustrated. She finally started talking, but it was like speaking to a text-to-speech artificial intelligence version of her voice. Flat, emotionless, almost annoyed. She told me she had gone to her friend John's, a fake name, house. I had no idea who John was and asked for an explanation. Over the course of a 2-hour conversation, where I had to pry details out of her, I learned most of the story. Her responses were minimal, almost lawyer-like. John is a coworker. I had met him once or twice at office events but never saw any signs that they were close. Apparently, for the past year or so, she had been confiding in him about her grief over her mother's death, and he had been comforting her. He also lost a parent to cancer, so they shared a connection she felt she did not have with me. After I read her the letter, she said she realized I do not care about her or her mother's death, and went to John's house for comfort. I flat out asked her if she was having an affair with him, and she said no. I asked her why she never mentioned she was close friends with this unknown man, and she told me it was none of my business. I asked if anything had happened between them while she was there, and she said they cuddled, and he held her while she cried. I asked to see her phone to check their messages, and she refused. I could not get much more detail out of her. When she went to take a shower, I tried to check her phone but found she had changed her passcode. I grabbed her iPad, which still had my thumbprint registered, and searched for evidence while she was in the shower. I left the house with the iPad to investigate. I did not immediately see any messages to or from a John, but after digging, I found it. She had saved him in her contacts as Stacy, but it was clearly him. There were messages going back over a year, filled with her talking about her mother and him comforting her. He also talked poorly about me, telling her I did not care about her and that he would treat her better if they were married. She agreed with his comments. There were several messages where she complained about me, and he continued to trash talk me. The night she left, she had texted him, "Forget it. I am on my way if the offer still stands." To which he immediately replied, "Yes." The next morning, he texted her, "He called again last night, but I did not answer. When you come back tonight, turn off your phone so he can stop harassing you." There were no messages indicating anything physical between them, but I do not know if that matters at this point. She has been home since that night, but she is barely present. She goes through the motions with the children but will not speak to me. She does not cuddle with me in bed, which was normal before this incident. She does not go to bed until well after I do and leaves the house for hours at a time. The children have noticed she is different, but do not ask many questions. I feel completely numb, but I also feel like I have failed as a husband. I have thought about the situation for days, and I do not think I want to stay in this marriage anymore. I still love her deeply, but I do not see a future for us. Even if nothing physical happened between her and John, the emotional affair, and I consider it an emotional affair, has destroyed my trust in her. Story 2. I found out my birthday gift was a cruise, which I don't want because of my seasickness and because I've been planning to go to a Renaissance fair. I've told him this before, but he doesn't listen. I ended up breaking up with him after realizing he always puts his own wants above mine. My birthday is coming up in a few months, and 3 days ago, I found out what my birthday present was going to be. Turns out they are tickets for a cruise. His sister accidentally let the news slip, thinking I would be excited about it. But I am not. We live together and I discovered the gift myself, knowing it is meant for me. I sound so ungrateful, but the truth is, I am not. This gift just proves to me that things between us will never change. The first issue with this gift is that it is not something I would ever enjoy. I do not like cruises because I get extremely bad seasickness, and nothing I do helps alleviate it. I have mentioned this to him before. I even told him what I wanted to do for my birthday, which was to attend a Renaissance fair on the day itself. I have already taken a week off from work in preparation for this event. I have bought the tickets and have been saving money each month to have enough spending money for the fair, without it affecting our finances at home. Why would he book cruise tickets for the exact same time I had planned to attend this festival? Moreover, the cruise is far from cheap, and it feels like wasted money since I am not going to go. I am beyond frustrated. I have told him over and over again that I do not feel like he listens to me. It seems like he buys things based on what he thinks is best for him or what he would like, not what I want. This does not only apply to gifts. He often makes decisions without considering my feelings, and I just cannot handle it anymore. I do love him, but I am so done with this. Before anyone assumes that I have not tried talking to him about it, I have many times. This has been a recurring issue throughout our 2.5-year relationship. I have reached the point where the only next step is to talk it out and end things. Update. The day I wrote my original post was the same day I ended things with my now ex. When he came home, I confronted him and said I had found the tickets for the cruise. I asked him who they were for, and he admitted they were for me, meant as a surprise for my birthday. I then asked him why he would buy cruise tickets knowing that I suffer from severe seasickness, and especially when he knew I had been preparing to attend a Renaissance fair for months. His response was that he loved cruises and assumed I could push through it with patches or other remedies because it was an expensive cruise. As he continued talking, I honestly spaced out. I realized how little this man cared about me. He bought the tickets completely disregarding my plans, my feelings, and my wishes. All because he liked cruises. Felt like my birthday did not matter at all. It was more about what he wanted. At some point, he noticed I was not engaging or getting excited. He asked me what was wrong, and that is when I broke up with him. He was shocked and angry, demanding to know why. I told him, in words close to these, "It is because I have come to realize that you do not truly care about me. You consistently put your own wants above mine whenever it suits you, even on my birthday." He tried to argue and wanted to talk things through, but I was numb. I went to sleep on the couch. He spent 2 hours trying to get me to talk, but I did not engage, so eventually he left me alone. The next morning, I woke up, got ready for work, and oddly felt fine. He wanted to talk, but I told him I was done. I said that if he wanted to discuss practical matters like the apartment, the lease, or how we were going to end the relationship, I was open to that, but I was not changing my mind. The relationship was over for me, and I wanted to part amicably. While at work that day, I had some free time, so I wrote down every instance I could remember over the past 6 months where he had chosen his own needs or desires over mine. I filled nearly 3 pages, front and back, and I had not even realized how much I had let slide because he did not want to do something. When I went home that night, he tried to talk to me again, so I gave him the list and explained what it was. He did not speak to me for the rest of the evening. He still has not accepted the breakup. Now, he is suggesting couples therapy or even going on a break because he suddenly realizes how much he has done wrong. But I am not interested in that. I am not trying to be mean or harsh, but I do not want to give him false hope. I feel weirdly okay but also numb at the same time. What I have to deal with now is breaking the lease. He is not willing to break it because he thinks we can work things out, so I will be talking to the leasing office soon to see what my options are. At least I have my birthday to look forward to while dealing with the end of this relationship and figuring out where I will live next.